Amendment.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Rogers.
I have an amendment at the desk, and I ask unanimous consent that the amendment be read.
Without objection.
Mr. Chairman, as I noted in my opening statement, there are very real risks associated with moving the terrorists currently detained at Guantanamo to the U.S. And in spite of those risks and the absence of any clear plan, the administration is moving forward with closing down the Guantanamo facility, and as of 2 days ago has begun to transfer terrorists to the U.S., and now in the morning papers we're reading to resettlement countries. That's why our colleague Frank Wolf has rightly pushed for restricting the funding for release or transfer of these terrorists until the President gives us his plan and analyzes the associated risks. Requirements this committee supported just 3 days ago at the 010 Commerce Justice Bill markup, and that are included in the pending 09 supplemental. As part of that plan, it's DHS's duty to conduct a thorough threat assessment of each and every detainee, something the Department should be doing as a standing member of the Interagency Guantanamo Task Force. There are not only obvious risks to our communities and our hometowns, but there are very susceptible inmate populations in our prisons that might fall prey to the twisted ideology and evil ways of these terrorists. We know about the radicalization efforts that are going on even as we speak around the world. And our prison populations in this country are susceptible, perhaps above any other, to that kind of influence. FBI Director Robert Mueller clearly stated concerns to Congress on May 20th when he said, "The concerns we have about individuals who may support terrorism being in the U.S. run from concerns about providing funding, radicalizing others, as well as the potential for individuals undertaking attacks in the U.S." Mr. Chairman, this is a deadly serious issue. Look at the spread of radicalization into the Western world since 9/11, a phenomenon that has resulted in multiple terrorist attacks and the deaths of countless civilians throughout Europe, and one that is a growing concern within the U.S. Just 2 days ago in Atlanta, a former Georgia Tech student was convicted on charges of conspiring to provide material support to terrorism in the U.S. And he was only radicalized over the internet, not while imprisoned or under the influence of known perpetrators of terrorism and violent extremism. So I believe it's clear we cannot be cavalier in letting known terrorists infiltrate and infect our incarceration facilities and, of course, our hometowns. I think it's without question that any plan for closing Guantanamo Bay must include a detailed threat assessment for each and every detainee. How can we ask the American people to endure such risks when the threat is not known or made clear to the Congress? And let me point out that despite the raging debate on this issue across the Capitol and in our districts, the administration is thumbing their nose at these concerns and are moving forward with the transfer of these terrorists, even as we speak, knowing of the absolute opposition of the Congress. I mean, how in all good conscience can the administration ignore the requirements that they know are coming and proceed to release and transfer detainees ahead of time? How can the administration move forward without informing Congress and the American people of the risks that they're asking us to face? So my amendment is simple. It complements the work this committee has already done by adding a vital requirement for a detailed, individualized threat assessment of each detainee. Furthermore, my amendment requires that the names of all the Guantanamo detainees be placed on the no-fly list, a requirement the entire House supported just last week during the consideration of the TSA authorization bill, and one that is clearly a prudent course of action. Finally, this amendment prohibits funds from being used to grant any type of immigration benefit or visa to these terrorists so that they cannot be admitted legally into the U.S. So, Mr. Chairman, I urge the members of the committee to support this amendment and require the proper assessment of potentially grave threats to the safety and security of the citizens of this country.